And this guy just kept coming back. I think we got talking, and then one thing led to another, and he kissed me, and I kissed him back. And that was the moment that hit me that, oh my God, I have just committed another sin. I ran non-stop to get home. And the first place I went to was the bathroom, and I just locked myself up in the bathroom. And I, filled up a bucket with water, pretending I was going to have a shower. Went into the bathroom. There was a hook up there, tied the towel, and turned the water away, stood on it, and tied it around myself, and just kicked the bucket away.
So in preparation, when I was looking into, you grew up in Nigeria.
Yeah.
And I was looking into the homosexuality laws in Africa in general. And I don't know, you're probably more aware than I am, but you see and hear different countries moving in different directions. So for example, Uganda, very recently, towards the end of 2023, they've passed a very I don't know the exact name of the law, but it's a very anti-LGBTQ plus law where you could face a death penalty in Uganda. You've got countries like South Africa where their laws is not illegal. They're generally more accepting. Mm-hmm. Doesn't mean it's safe, but there's countries moving in a number of different directions. In fact, I've got it written down. Homosexuality is illegal in 31 African countries.
And we have only 54 countries on the continent.
So more than half. More than half. And then the varying levels of punishment are very different. So from fines to imprisonment to death penalty, like Uganda.
And Nigeria. In northern part of Nigeria, you'll be stoned to death.
In Nigeria, it's not illegal though, is it?
It's illegal. It's actually the first African country to pass an act of parliament to criminalize same-sex marriage before the African countries started joining it. So Nigeria passed its own in 2014. So it's now 10 years since Nigeria has a law on paper.
How has the LGBTQ plus landscape evolved over the last few years in Africa?
I think it's just about, there's something about punishment, that forbidden thing that gets people curious in a way. Look at them as sex in the office. It's like people doing things that they know is kind of illegal and just kind of that act of defiance in a way. So now, there are gay parties everywhere. It's as if it's never been there before, but now there are more queer visibility in Nigeria than before. And this is a country now that has a law, technically has a law on paper. So it's kind of interesting. The same thing in Uganda. There's a massive queer visibility in Uganda, despite the fact that, there is the law. And I think that people kind of get to a point and say, you know what? Now you have a law, then come get us. So we'll do what we're going to do anyway.
Because it must be, I don't know what it was like for you growing up in Nigeria, but I would imagine it must be scary.
It was very scary. And it wasn't just the scary bit. I mean, you have to know who you are to be scared of what is after you. So for me growing up, it was very much about who am I? Right. It was me just trying to understand me. So, and there was hardly any examples or any role models or any heroes to look up to. So you start from the position of you are wrong, something is not right with you, and you believe what anybody tells you because there is no counter story to that.
Yeah. Let's talk about you in Nigeria. Growing up, you were Adimola in Nigeria. Now you're Bisi Alimi. Can you talk about that journey? That journey from Adimola, that journey you're talking about, that self-acceptance, trying to find yourself, trying to discover who you are and who you are now. Like, what was that change? What was that journey like?
Oh, that's a very interesting place to start from, because I really don't get asked that question and the intention behind it. I think Demola is the son of my mom and the son of my father. He is this person who really doesn't have a grip of what he wants from life. And I'm not saying that in order to bring him down, but that's the reality of that. And I think that, Bisi is completely the opposite. Very assertive, very comfortable in himself, love the limelight, and accepts challenges. I think he's wiser, and being able to live in both world was kind of challenging for me. So, like you said, I was born Ademola. Adebisi was never my name. And when I came out in 2004, before I came out, when I was trying to understand myself and accept myself in a way, the name just kept coming back to me. It just kept and it has a meaning. So Ademola means my crown or my prince has brought me wealth. And Adebisi means there's an addition to my prince. And I felt like I needed to add more to me, that my sexuality is an addition to who I was becoming at that time, and I needed to own it. And I changed my name. And I remember when I did, I had to tell my dad that, I've changed my name. And they were like, what's wrong with you? And I couldn't put it into words to let them understand, because I didn't come from a very well-educated family. And I still can't understand how to put into words my own sexuality. So for me to not try to explain that to my parents that don't even understand what is going on was quite hard. So it was something that I really didn't want to talk about. But my mom will still call me Demola, which is a short form of Ademola. People from the past will call me Ademola. The times I've been walking down the street of London and I hear Ademola and I'm like, who is that? Yeah. But everyone now calls me Bisi because that's my name and that's who I embrace and that's what I live authentically myself. And that's.
You said that you didn't come from a very well-educated family background, and then you didn't maybe know how, or maybe not have the language, or maybe not understand, trying to explain your sexuality to your family growing up. Were your family, were your family aware of your sexuality?
My mom, there's this thing that moms, they always know. They always know.
Moms know everything.
Yeah. So I grew up in a very religious home. So I think, there's something about how life kind of prepare us for whatever it is we're going to go through. So from childhood, my life was kind of complicated in a way. So my father, let's say, devout Muslim, my mother, an evangelical Christian. That marriage was not set up to work because those two religions kind of don't see eye to eye in Nigeria. But it worked until my father died January last year. So it was very much they were always there. And we could go to church on Sundays and I will attend Quranic school Monday to Friday. And it was okay for us to be who we want to be or whatever we want to be. But the thing was that my mother always has a way of passing message to me that she's aware of whatever is going on. So she will come to me and she will say, whatever it is that you are doing that God is not happy with, stop it. And you can read meaning to that. You can know, she does know what she's talking about. And she'll say it over and over again. And I think after I finished secondary school, she caught me twice with a guy in bed. And sometimes she would just go, typical African mother, there was a time she just spent all day crying. And she couldn't explain to my siblings why she was crying because, she doesn't really know how to handle that kind of situation. But my mother has shown me over and over again, that she was very aware of it right from my childhood. My father, however, never had a conversation about this with me until 2013.
Wow. Okay. And what was that conversation like?
So I was invited to the White House to meet with the Obamas, and I talked about it on social media. And my uncle, because when I came out in 2004, so between 2004, then I left Nigeria 2007. So between 2007 and 2011, 12, my parents were not talking to me. They practically just cut me off. So I kind of also don't have a good relationship with them. And my uncle saw my post, and I think he had a conversation with my dad. And for some weird reasons, I got a call. And my mother said, your father's been in the hospital and it was a very serious case, but he said he wanted to talk to you. And that was when my father apologized to me for the first time.
Wow.
And that was so powerful. And it was like, I wanted you to be what I wanted you to be. And I never given you the chance to just be you. And when I heard that you were a guest of the Obamas, and I just felt like this was a boy that grew up in the ghetto. And he's been everywhere in the world, and it's now where even some presidents in the world will be begging to meet these people, and he's there with them. And he was like, I'm really sorry. And after that, I will have very powerful conversation with my father around him asking me to be quite considerate and forgiving towards my mom in particular. And he would say that it took you years to accept you. I wanted to understand that maybe they will never get there. And you have to understand that it's okay. And I missed him so much when he died last year, because we spent a lot of time just talking. And I remember when I took my husband to Nigeria, and the moment my dad saw him, he was just telling him everything he ought not to tell him about my childhood. And I'm like,
All those embarrassing stories.
oh my God. I was like, why did I bring this guy here now? and the way they bonded, and he left and was like, oh, your dad is so cool. I said, wow, yes, he's so cool. And I'm happy that he gave me that gift, and he meant the world to me.
That sounds so powerful. I come from a Ghanaian background, and I know just in general what African men can be like. Are very proud, very much set in their ways. And for your father, who's grown up in Nigeria in, I don't know, sometime in the probably 50s, 60s, 70s, I don't know how old he was, but growing up in that period of time where Nigeria was probably a lot more conservative. And that's been his experience his whole life. And then for him to have you as a son, which has challenged his beliefs, and then over whatever period of time to come out and then if basically apologize and then say, apologize, this is who I am, blah, 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 etc. And then not only apologize, but accept you and then build that relationship again, must have been incredibly moving, must have been maybe difficult for him and very moving for yourself to hear and to experience. How did you feel?
I mean, I wasn't expecting that conversation. So it wasn't as if, I'm now going to see my father and I'm going to now have this conversation with my father. So I have this talking point. I have all these things I want to talk about. So when I see him, this is how I'm going to explain what I want to explain. He did not give me that opportunity to prepare. And I think it worked, because if I had prepared what I wanted to say, maybe I wouldn't have listened, or I wouldn't have the gift of hearing what he wanted to say to me. And because I wasn't prepared, he said those things in the moment, and I was, is this coming from my dad? But also my father was never a very difficult person. Right. My father was quite a very laid back man. I come from a monogamous family. So my father was kind of laid back, I think I happened to be the kind of like the troublesome one. and then I'm also kind of very close to him. So I always choose to always hate what he likes because he's so very quite laid back. So when it comes to football, I will always support the opponent. When it comes to politics, I will always go the other way, just to like get him talking. And we shared a lot of beautiful moments when it comes to books. He introduced me to reading. This is a man that taught himself how to read. So he introduced me to a lot of things, and we shared a lot of beautiful moments. And for me, I just felt like I didn't, because I remember once when he said, "Why didn't you tell me?" And I said, "I didn't tell you because I don't think that you have the capacity to understand it, because I didn't myself didn't have the capacity to understand what this is." And it's hard for me. It's hard for me to just come to you and say, "Oh, Dad, I'm gay." And then you're going to ask me, "What is that?" And I'm going to say, "Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I just like boys." And I'm like, "Okay, what does that mean?" Because I don't know. And I can't tell you something that I don't know.
Outside of the family context, what was it like growing up in Nigeria? Did you face, what other challenges did you face?
I mean, growing up in Nigeria for me was kind of fun. It was fun because I grew up on the street, right? And growing, and there's something about the street. There's a creed, but the street, we have to protect our own. And in a way, there was that kind of like protection that comes from the street, even when they were aware of my sexuality, right? And when I say I grew up on the street, it wasn't as if it was a choice. It was not a choice. You know, we were poor, we were, striving to survive, and we live very close to a major bus stop and a major market. So which means that all the time, gangs, drugs, and all of these things were always going on. So for me, childhood was like very, very on a fast lane, like really, really, really fast. And I had so many wonderful friends. Some of them are still my friends till now. And for me, it just, being streetwise helped me to be able to cope with a lot of things that I'm experiencing in my life at the moment. Because when people throw something at me, please, is that the best you can do? As it was. let's get it moving on. So, but there were also challenges. There were the bullying that happened. I went to an all boys school, secondary school. So in the 80s, it was really hard growing up when you fancy boys, but you don't know how to say it. But then rumors start going around that you fancy boys, and people just kind of like just poke fun at you, but there's no support network. There's no one to reach out to. There was no social media. There was nothing. So you can't really learn anything about yourself. And then the 90 came, and that was kind of really empowering for me, right? In the way that once I became kind of like a mature teenager, so I'm talking about 17, 18, 19, I started going to gay parties in Lagos. So I started seeing other gay people, and I started feeling like, oh, gosh, this is real. There's nothing wrong with me. I mean, there's so many of us. And then AIDS came, and that kind of like was a big reality for me and for a lot of people around me. But I mean, life growing up was, I would say, was just like this manual that needs to prepare me for adulthood. And it was fun, it was challenging, but it was also empowering.
And you grew up in a religious household.
Yes, very religious.
How do you marry up the religion? How did that impact your upbringing as well? Particularly in the sense like your sexuality and the religion. Was there any conflict or clash there?
Oh, those massive conflicts. Let's even talk about the religion of my mother and my father. There was a major conflict there, right? So they had to reach a compromise that we will go to church on Sundays, but Monday to Fridays, we will go to Quranic school. So we'll go to Quranic school. And Rebel Me started this unplanned revolution in the house because we will go to Quranic school and we will get flogged if we don't learn our Quran and the Hadith or whatever it is. If we're not learning them and we can say them very well, the imams, they will like really give us some nice flogging. But on Sundays, when we go to church, we do Bible studies, and then if you get the questions right, you get gifts and you get lunch in church. So church was kind of cool.
Yeah.
It became a place where, you want to go to. So I was becoming kind of like born again at that time. And then when I was 15, 16, I was introduced to a form of evangelical religious movement. Then I became a born again Christian. So I completely left Islam, and I started going to church. My father fought against that a little bit, but I was just like focused on my ways, that I just want to be a born again Christian, and that would be. And it was that I would say that was the point of the conflict, in a way that I became born again because I was ashamed of my sexuality. And this was around my last year in junior high. And again, people would say that, but you don't have words for it. Why can you be ashamed of it? Because I didn't have words for it doesn't mean I wasn't sexually or romantically involved with boys. So I was involved with boys, but I don't know how to personalize it, how to say those words out. Like young kids these days will say, oh, I'm gay, oh, I'm bi, oh, I don't know what I was, but I know that I love boys, and I know that I spend time with boys, whether sexually or romantically. I know that there was something going on. And I think it was that. And I had a teacher then. She came from England to Nigeria to teach in my school, and she was teaching my best subject, literature. And we were very close. And she was the first person that I came out to. And this was when I was in my GSS3, junior secondary school. And I came out to her, and she said that, and she was the first person that introduced me to Romans chapter 1, verse 26, 27, I think, 28. And that was about Paul talking about his afflictions and all of those things, but being quite clear about homosexuality. And that was very hard for me to take. One, because this is a teacher that I have so much respect for, and she is interested in my welfare. And now she's telling me that what I'm doing is wrong. And that got to me. And so that led me on a path of trying to find redemption. So I was invited for a show. I went for the show. I saw a theme. I gave my life to Jesus, and I started then distancing myself from my gay friends, and kind of like trying to be closer to God. And that was then where that conflict was so powerful and so consuming in a way.
What did that do to your mind, your mental state?
Are we allowed to swear?
Yeah.
It fucked it up. I was a teenager, and it just completely ruined my 15, 16, 17, almost 18 years. So that period, that 3-year period, I was an A student in school. I flopped academically. My social engagement just went down. I became suicidal. And I remembered, so I became born again 15 when we were leaving junior high. So when we came back to senior high, I was then 16, 17. And I remember once I was really troubled about the fact that there was a guy I was dating in secondary school then. And he kept coming back and I kept saying no, but I know that I still have feelings for him. So I discussed this with my friends in church and I said, there's this guy. Okay, I said, guys, I'm fighting an affliction. Exactly what I said. And they were like, what is it? And I said, I have homosexual tendencies. And they said, oh my God, and immediately we started praying that God this, God that. And I was advised to have a conversation with a pastor in the church, which I did. And then that led me to exorcism. I was 16. So that led me to exorcism. So I had my first exorcism at the age of 16, 17-ish. And when that ended, I was told that if I happen to do this again, it's because I didn't have enough faith that God has cured me. And so when it happened, I had to own the guilt of it, because the shame of it, because God has cured me. The reason I kissed my ex in school during break was because I didn't trust God enough. And that was the first time I attempted suicide. I was 17.
And this was after there's an exorcism, but then
that was after the exorcism. Yeah. The shame of it for me to say, why did I go back to this when God has cured me? So I didn't have enough faith in God.
So it sounds like, okay, so were there multiple exorcism attempts?
Yeah, there were multiple exorcism and there were multiple attempts.
Yeah,
suicide.
It sounds like what you said the first time you tried, you were 17. Is that something that you feel comfortable talking about?
I mean,
how that day went?
I've talked about it a lot. I mean, I volunteered for some time for an LGBT school charity in this country, that we go into schools and we share our stories with young people. And I love to share this story. And I remember it was we were around somewhere in East London, and it was predominantly all these inner London schools are predominantly Black kids. And I shared my story, and there was this young Black guy that walked up, would be about 14, 15, and he just walked up to me and just pulled me to a corner, and this guy just burst into tears and was just crying. And I was like, what's going on? And he said, I'm living your life now. And for me, it was oh my God, I can't believe this. I can't believe that this could happen to a child in this country. How far this country has gone, and to a Black kid in this country. And so I'm not ashamed, I'm not afraid to share it, but I just hope that when somebody listen back now, they have some form of support, because it could be triggering for me. So what happened was, it was during break time in school, and this guy just kept coming back because he just doesn't understand why I've got everyone off. And we had a wonderful relationship for teenagers, And I think we got talking, and then one thing led to another, and he kissed me and I kissed him back. And that was the moment that hit me that, oh my God, I have just committed another sin. And I can tell you this because I ran. I remember I was doing a documentary for a UK company once, and I was trying to let them understand the distance between my house and my school, and to let them know how far I ran non-stop to get home. And the first place I went to was the bathroom, and I just locked myself up in the bathroom. And I'm just thinking about it now. So sometimes I just ask, where did I get that idea to be able to go through this process? And it just shows that when people are in a very depressive state, whatever action that they are taking sometimes they are not even conscious of it. And that is why, using words like somebody commits is a very, very dangerous word to use, that we need to be very cautious about the language we use around mental health, because I didn't even understand what I was doing. Filled up a bucket with water, pretending I was going to have a shower, went into the bathroom. There was a hook up there, tied the towel and turned the water away, stood on it and tied it around myself and just kicked the bucket away. But because I was so heavy and the thing collapsed on me. And that was when they said, what's going on? What's going on? So this thing just collapsed. And nobody asked question about why would this thing just collapse? And I remember when I told my dad about that incident, he was really shocked. And I said, you would have lost me at 17. At 17, I would have been gone. And it would have been because of this, not because of anything, but because I love a boy. Just because I love a boy, I would have been gone.
That, as you're speaking, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, that sounds, I don't even know. I don't know what words to even use. It sounds like your mind must have been, your mind, soul, like you, all over the place, confused, battling with yourself. It sounds like such a crazy place to be in for such a young person as well.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever felt like that before. I felt very low in my life before. And I have felt like this is too much and I've wanted to end it before. I've never tried to go through with anything. Maybe I haven't got to that stage, but it sounds like it was like over a period of time as well. It wasn't like a one-off, it was over years, a long period of time where you're really battling this and then trying to go over here, not accepting yourself because you've been told this isn't right, you're gonna probably go to hell or whatever, etc., and then church is telling you this and friends and family are telling you this, and my goodness, and then it's culminated in that, not even just once, on a few separate occasions. Absolutely crazy. After this period of time in your teenage years, you've gone through the exorcisms, you've attempted a few times. What was the turning point for you? Was it the coming out on TV? Or?
Oh no, that was another thing. I think at the age of 17, 18, the first major turning point was that I didn't die. And then the question was, why? And so most times when I look back and I see myself exhibiting a kind of behavior now at a certain age, which I could call midlife crisis, I kind of like, oh, where is this coming from? And I go, oh gosh, yeah, I did this when I was at a certain age. Like my level of curiosity was really heightened when I was really young. And I always kind of love to ask questions. I want to get things, even though in an African family, you're not allowed to ask questions. But I was kind of like, still a little bit curious about things. And so the first turning point was when I was 18. And my friends, there were about 5 of us in secondary school then, that we were like really out and quiet. And I stopped talking to them when I became born again. So, but they wouldn't give up on me. So there was this party that they were having, and they were like, oh, and the way that gay parties happened in the past is that you have to know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody before you can get a pass. You're never going to get an invite, and you're never going to get in. So one of my friends, a friend of his invited him. So he asked if he can come with his friends. So he came to me and he said, would you like to come? And I said, okay, I don't mind. So I had to lie to my mom that I was going for vigil. I was going to church because that's the only way she allowed me to get out of the house. So I lied to my mom I was going to church, and so we went there, and I remember very well the first time I walked into this place, and I saw these people, and I'm like, oh my God, what in hellfire is this? Like people like dressed up, like dragged up, men kissing men, what an abomination. People like, and I was like, I was like, God. And I remember halfway into the party, I had to go to a corner and I started praying because I was like, what if Jesus sounds a trumpet at this moment? One, I lied. Two, I'm supposed to be in church. I'm not in church. Three, I am with these people. What if Jesus is choosing this moment to come and I'm not going to make the rapture? I was so scared of everything that was going on. And then, but it was exciting. You know, it was scary, but it was exciting. So I went back the next time. I went back the next time. And I was kind of like building my confidence because the more I lie that I was going to vigil, the more exciting the party gets. So I could always come back and lie that I'm going to vigil and I go to the party. And so that was going on. And I think I was then seeing people that kind of have a level of trust in me within that community, and were taking me on as their own child, and they were like helping me to grow. And so when I have any questions I could ask, and they will be able to just give me answers and say, oh, things are like this. So from there, I started developing the vocabularies to talk about myself, to talk about what I was going through. I started having people I can share things with. And that was when it was going on for me. And then again, you know, I I had another episode of Exorcism, which was driven by my mom. And that was also very hard for me. And I, again, have to like find my way to come out of that. And by the time I was coming out on TV, I just had enough. And I always tell people, you know, when they talk about that TV episode and they said, oh, you must be very courageous. You must be very this. And I was like, no. That was my love letter to life. Because I was so sure that time that I needed to go. I needed to die. And that was my own cutting call. Again, I don't know why it never happened.
Wow. Okay, you've come out on TV. You're in Nigeria for a little bit after that, before you eventually relocated to the UK.
Yeah.
What was that period like after you've come out on TV?
It was hard.
It must have been unsafe, to say the
my God,
least.
it was unsafe. It was it was just hard. Because just to give you an understanding of why it could have been enticing for a TV show to have me, I was in Nollywood. I was an actor in Nollywood. And I was going to be outed anyway. Prior to that, my school magazine had outed me and talked about me about being gay, and because I was also acting in the university. And so there was that this is going to happen one day. No matter how much you try to hide this thing, it's going to happen. How much can you pull it away? And now you've always wanted to be an actor, and the dream is here. You now have it. And these people are going to take it away from you. Just like, you know, they've taken almost everything away from you. So I came out on TV, and I remember that day we were on TV and shit was happening outside. Like, it was like immediate.
As in, like, people outside the studio
were, like the TV station wanted to cut it off, but it was hard. It can't, because it's never happened before, so they can't just cut it off like that. And the TV presenter just kept asking all these funny questions, and I was like just giving all these funny answers.
Did they know you were coming to say that on the TV?
No.
Okay.
No, the presenter knew I was going to be coming out. But
Okay.
the producer knew as well. But every other person walking, like that present in the studio that day, had no idea what was about to happen.
Right.
So like Nigeria was like, and this is the most watched TV talk show in Nigeria. So the whole country was like, what is happening? And I was just sitting down there with my 2 pound shoes and just like saying all of these things, and the world was collapsing around us. And when we were getting out of the studio, the presenter had to run back and say, no, I can't let you go. I need to drop you off. And so I entered our car, and she had to we have to find our way through all of these people. And she dropped me off at home. That was when reality hit. I was living in an estate. It was not very hard for me to move around. The people that saw me 2 days before on TV and thought, oh, do you remember that guy, the actor? And they would stop and say, hello, we love your play. With people that were now throwing stones at me. And it was like, oh gosh, what am I going to do with my life? And then we're supposed to resume shooting for the TV series when I got the call that don't even bother coming on set anymore. We can't have you here. That was the end of my acting career. Something I spent 4 years learning in university to become my childhood dream, just taken away from me like that. So though I couldn't get a job, I was finding it very hard to pay my rent. I have moved from the sweetheart of the nation to the most hated person. Editorials after editorials in the newspaper talking about that episode, and everybody painting me like this evil person, and having to deal with that, and then being cut off by families and friends. The most painful part was how suddenly the queer community in Nigeria at that time turned against me because, and I do get it, they need to protect themselves. And being seen with me now, it's like anybody that is seen with me is gay. So nobody wants to come near me. I was alone. I was lonely. I was ashamed of myself. There was no network. There was no support. It was hard. It was a very, very dark place to be.
It seems as if a lot of the time that you spent in Nigeria, particularly as a youth, was very traumatic. And I'm supposing that drives the work that you do now, everything you stand for now, the things that you speak about now, the things you advocate for now, the things you do with your foundation now. All of this, like when you were in Nigeria as Ademola, that was a very crazy time. You're young, you're trying to find yourself, and you're being hit with all sorts of resistance from every single angle. Now you've come here and you can, I suppose, you tell me if I'm wrong, but I suppose you can now be yourself, and without that fear of judgment, without fear of angry mob waiting outside your house and things like that, you're more free. And then when you come across that young person that you saw in school, that in the school you went to, and then they burst out crying, so you're living your life, it's like, oh my gosh, you're looking at a younger version of yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, oh my gosh, this happens over here.
I mean, and then in this country,
in the UK,
this country, and so, but I also think that, in the spirit of the conversation we're having, I also think that Nigerian instead prepared me for what I would face in the UK, because there's always these assumptions that now you're in the UK, life is brilliant. You're now, everything is rosy and your life is great. But it wasn't like that though. When I got here, I didn't even know I could claim asylum. So I was like just floating. I was staying with my aunt down in East Ham, who made my life a little bit of a funful hell. And then and I had to get a job because I can't go back to Nigeria. I had to get a job. I don't have papers. So I was doing job under the counter to get paid. And a lot of things happening at the same time. And then suddenly I became Black. And that was like the universe took away the shame and the regret of being gay and just gave me, it's like, you know what, you're never going to know peace. Now, your next battle is you're going to become black. And how you're going to deal with that, we're not going to help you. So I then started dealing with what it means to be black, something I've never been before in my life. And nobody prepared me for it, like nobody prepared me for being gay. So I don't know what it means. The only thing I know about being black is from the movies we watch when we were in Nigeria, about gangs, about all of these things. I don't want to be that. I don't want to be black. I don't want to associate with black people. I don't want to have anything to do with those black kids, because that's not me. That's not who I am. Even though I grew up on the street, I wasn't like those people. And I hear conversations about what blackness represent here. And it reminds me of what gayness represent, where I was coming from. And I just don't want to go back into that headspace. So being black for me was hard. It was hard. It was just like being gay.
What do you mean when you say you found out or you became black? What do you mean by that?
When I got here, like I said, blackness for me was not something I can say I have I don't understand it. And I'll be very open and clear about it. I don't understand what it means to be black. And I had a couple of experiences here. The first one was I was studying Spanish at Goldsmith College because I just wanted to say, okay, I'm here. I want to do something with my life instead of just sitting down at home. And I was staying with a boyfriend then, and down in just off Lewisham Highway, and I was the only black. Okay, I was the only person that was not white. I want to tell the story the way that it developed so that I don't confuse the blackness into it. I was the only person that wasn't white in that class. And when I say was not white, I mean was not white. So there was no Arab, there was no Asian, there was nothing. We just were about 10 of us and they were all white. And I was the only black person. And I just arrived. I have accents. I mean, it's normal. People do. You go to Birmingham, it's different from Manchester. And I always tell people, you don't need to be ashamed of your accent. It's what it is. And I will struggle, I will learn, I will do everything in the Spanish class. And this lecturer will just make my life hell. Like really hell. Now, I didn't attribute anything that was going on to the color of my skin, because I don't know that people could do that to you because of the color of your skin. And I was dating a white guy then. So I would get home and I would tell my boyfriend, and my boyfriend would say, oh, it's your accent. Maybe we need to do something about it. Maybe we need to give you a speech therapist to help you. And I was self-doubting myself. I was feeling that I wasn't good enough. The other thing was I was going for audition because I just felt like, I spent 4 years in the university. Now I'm in the UK. I can be an actor. So I will go to auditions and I will hear, you're very good at the interpretation, but we don't have a space for someone like you now. Or we already found someone like you. And I don't know what that means, right? Or when I was working in Topshop, when it was still there, and things will happen and I will hear words or something like that. They don't mean anything to me. So one day, it was around early autumn. Autumn was just starting. And I was coming back from class. And I entered my street and I could see police cars parked everywhere. So they stopped me and they said, there's been a crime here. A house has just been broken into. Somebody has been attacked. And you fit the description. I was like, I've been in class. I'm just coming from class. Hey. And the UK police, especially the Met police, they're very nice. Very nice people. They say, we understand all of these things, what's going on. But we need to search you. So they searched me. They found my notebook. They found everything. I said, I've been in class. I showed them my ID. I showed them my timetable for the day. I showed them the note that I took in class. They said, yeah, but the thing is that you fit the description of the person. So at that time, they collected my fingerprint, they collected my name, they collected my phone number, they collected my address, and they said that they were going to release me, but that they will be in touch. But what this was going on, so let me go back. So I just started having locks. I wasn't having locks then, so I was clean shaved. There was another guy, a bit on the robust side and wearing glasses with dreadlock. He was standing just in front of my house. He was watching what was going on. So they allowed me to go. So I left. And as I was about to enter my building, he stopped me, saying, "Hey, bro." I said, what's going on? I said, "Nothing. Just police outside. I've just been told something happened and they're trying to find out." I started laughing. And I was like, "Why are you laughing?" He said, "Because they stopped me and they told me I fit the description of the criminal. And you and I don't look the same apart from the fact that we are black." And I was like, "Oh." But they only told me it was one person. And I looked at the guy, but I kind of dismiss it because it doesn't make sense to me. To me, they're doing a great job to keep my street safe and all of that. So I got in, I told my boyfriend what happened. I said, don't make too much of it. They're just doing their job, and we, this environment, we need to keep it safe. Don't think about it too much. I said, "I'm not even bothered about it. I hope that they find whoever's done this, all those black kids. I don't understand why So I was using the language of the oppressor because I don't know differently. And then a few weeks later, I was hanging out with a group of black queer men in Soho, and I shared the experience to them. And one of them, the one that was very close to me, said, "Oh, welcome to being black." And I was like, "Why does everything have to be about race?" And I said, "Well, because it is about race." And that was when I started this journey of understanding what has race got to do with it. And that's when I realized, oh, shit, all of these things, spoken and unspoken, seen and unseen, they are because of this. And it's not just this, it's just because of what I represent. Oh, that took me almost 2 years to find out. Oh, gosh, no.
Yeah. I've grown up, I had a load of run-ins with police, and I've like a load, not because I'm out committing crime, just because they used to harass us growing up. The stop and searches and say we fit descriptions and stuff. And like when I say we've had it all, we've been pinned up on the wall, roughed up. I had a friend that got put in a cell overnight because he fit the description. Then they let him go. My brother's friend, it was just a normal thing for us growing up. It's crazy.
I mean, it was what people were telling me, that I came here when I was 32. So people were like, you're old enough, though you're old enough not to experience what a lot of young black people would have experienced. If you had come here when you were younger, it would have been a different story entirely. And I do really appreciate the black community that I had opportunity to grow with in this country, and the time they spent in nurturing me to appreciate, not just understand, but to appreciate my blackness. Then all of this was happening, and Stephen Lawrence case was going on, was always in the TV. There was always one black person's case on the TV every time. So it was very overwhelming for me. And that's why I said understanding blackness was hard, because I wasn't understanding blackness within the beauty of the Toni Morrison or Audre Lorde or every other powerful people, or James Baldwin. I was experiencing blackness from the aspect of hate and criminality. And so I was trying to push myself away from that. It wasn't a blackness that I wanted to associate with. And I had to go looking for that blackness. I had to be very intentional to find that blackness, to embrace that blackness, to be that blackness.
It's interesting you say you had to be intentional, because you don't have to be intentional to find it, the blackness expressed from that vision, that lens of hate and criminality and that kind of thing. It's just there. You don't have to look for it.
Yeah.
It's just in front of you. But to go and look for blackness expressed in more positive forms, love, light, activism, etc., you've had to now go out of your way to go and find the literature or find the videos or whatever. And it's crazy, and that's an issue. And that's something we spoke about very briefly before we started as well, which was some of the inspiration behind 1,000 Voices, that there's just too much nonsense out there that's way too easily available. And a lot of people doing very good things. Toni Morrison, love her literature, love her books, like amazing. And James Baldwin as well. Like
Exactly.
a lot of people doing a lot of very, very good
I mean,
things.
in this country, you have the likes of Diana Abbott. You have so many amazing people that are doing so many wonderful things. And it's just that the system is quite intentional in just taking that information and censoring it and taking it away from us. And also there was another thing that I struggle with, which I don't anymore, that sense of community, of Black community, which was something I struggled with the concept of the gay community and how it is used to gatekeep. How monolithic discourse is used to gatekeep individualism in a way, and why it is always an excuse for the powerful. So I've never heard of a white community. So it was funny because today, actually, a friend of mine was posting on WhatsApp about a young black girl that shoplifted, and she also happened to be Black, now became conscious of the act of the Black girl, that when she was going out, she was being very overtly saying, I am not that Black girl. I did not steal anything like that Black girl. I paid for my thing, not like that Black girl. And I was sitting there and I was like, how many white people see a white person shoplifting and even care to be intentional about saying, I am not that white person? White people have never had a chance in their life to say that I am not like that white person. It's not a language that they are gifted. We had to do that. When I see, when something happened, when there's been a crime or something, I am watching the news and I'm praying, please don't let it be a Black person. Please don't let it be a Black person. Please don't let it be an Asian person. Please don't let it be anybody that is not white. Because I know that the conversation is, I have to justify, or have an explanation for why Black people are like this.
I want to talk a bit about the work you do now. So the Bisi Alimi Foundation. Can you, first of all, for people who aren't aware about what it is, can you give a very brief description of what it is? And more importantly, what it is you're working towards? What do you believe in?
Oh, so I started the foundation, the Bisi Alimi Foundation, in 2014 as a reaction to when the Nigerian president signed the Same-Sex Marriage Prohibition Act, which is like a law that criminalizes LGBT identity and behavior with 14 years imprisonment. And I thought, and that law actually started way back 2006 after my coming out. So the bill initially that was presented to Parliament was a reaction of the Nigerian government to my coming out on national television. So I have this sense of like guilt that, I started this thing. And when the bill became law, I felt like I needed to do something about it. So I started the foundation. And the intention simply was to accelerate social acceptance of LGBT persons in Nigeria. And my point is that the law will change, but what matters to me will be the hearts and the mind of the people. We can punish people with the law. And before we started this, we're talking about South Africa that has the most progressive LGBT law in the world. But gay people still get killed. Lesbians still experience corrective rape. All of these things are still going on. There's a lot of aggression and a lot of abuse towards LGBT people. So I'm looking at a situation where the law will change, but hearts and minds will also change together. And for us to be able to do that, we look at, okay, who are the gatekeepers of information? So journalists. So we have programs that target journalists and train them and give them the tools to talk about LGBT people. I also felt like, there is no liberation without economics, right? There has to be money in liberation. And I think that if queer people have access to money and have access to some form of economic empowerment, they can use that as a tool of changing hearts and minds. So we started a program called Rainbow Academy, and the whole idea is to encourage entrepreneurship amongst LGBT people, but not just encourage, but give money to it. So last year, it might sound a little bit too small, but last year we spent over £2,000 just investing in queer business ideas. And last year, we also started a new project called Queerpedia. And this is to counter the argument that LGBT is un-African. And the reason why that argument has been flying is because when you go online to search for queer Africans, you hardly find something. And the reason why you hardly find something is we're not telling our stories, and there's no way for us to document those stories. So with the support from the Wikimedia Foundation, we are now training LGBT people on how to use Wikipedia, Wikicommons, and Wikidata to start populating queer history in Nigeria on the cyberspace. So in 20, 40 years, when another boy like me comes along and pick up their computer and type something, there's a history for you that can tell you that you're not alone. There's a story of somebody in the past that you can read. And when somebody says, oh, you're being an African, you say, oh, no, I have always been here because there have always been people like me here. So that is predominantly the work that we're doing.
Amazing. If you could go back and tell your childhood self something, some advice, what would you tell them?
Don't give up because you're going to be a bitch. but really, if I could tell my 17-year-old in that bathroom, I would just say, I know it's tough, but I've been to your future, and you are going to be powerful. You're going to be awesome. You're going to be, you have no idea what you're going to become. Put that bucket down, walk out of that place, turn the world to your stage, because they are going to sit back and watch you excel. Yeah, that's what I'll say.
That's lovely. Thank you. Before you wrap up, have you got any final words for us?
Oh, so the final words I've got is thank you for the work that you're doing with this. Actually, this is amazing. I'm waiting for who's going to be the 1,000th voice.
Go wait another 19, 18 years.
We'll still be ASMR. But really, it's that when we create stories like this, we think it's for the moment, and the moment is eternal. But the point is, there's somebody that will go back in time. And even when we're not here anymore and listen to this and find that power to be that maybe we struggled with when we were young. And I think what you're doing is really amazing. It's awesome. And thank you for doing it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for coming down. Very, very powerful story. So I really thank you for coming down, and thank you for sharing with the vulnerability and authenticity that you shared with as well. And I'm sure that people who listen to this, whether they're part of the LGBTQ plus community or not, will be inspired by it, like I've been. So thank you so much for coming down.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah. Really a pleasure.
And that's that. So thank you for coming. We had Bisi Alimi on the podcast. This is 1,000 Voices. And for now, people, we're out.